Hey everybody, welcome to Framework and our ongoing series on the films of John Carpenter. Framework's John Carpenter's The Podcast is the title of the series. And today we are talking about Prince of Darkness. With me, as always, is the other host of Framework, Al. How are you today, Al?
Oh, I'm very good. You know, I've been looking forward to this one. Since we started the Carpenter, whatever you called it just now. This is the one that I had seen before, but I'd only seen it once, and it was like 15 years ago. I didn't remember it very well, but was most excited to revisit.
This is one that kind of I could see this one sort of dropping out of the brain a little. There's a lot to hold on to in Prince of Darkness.
It's a strange movie though. There are parts of it that stick with you.
Oh, for sure. And with us today, joining us first time on the program, Sal Brienik. How are you today, Sal?
I'm doing great, John. Al, I'm very excited to be here for this movie. I am so happy you asked me for this. Like, of all the Carpenters, this is the one I was hoping you would ask me about. So I am very psyched.
Why? Do you have a personal Prince of Darkness relationship?
Let me level set for you and be very honest up front so you can rip me the rest of the recording. This is my second favorite Carpenter movie, only behind Big Trouble in Little China. I will say this is the best of the Apocalypse trilogy, and I know what heresy it is to say that with the thing existing, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, this is why I wanted you on the show for this one, Sal. This is because you're not alone on that. I mean, that's pretty extreme over the thing, but I mean, this does have a cult.
You're alone on some of that. Some of the particulars there. This one's got its cult, but yeah, there's not a lot. I don't think there's a lot of POD greater than the thing fanatics out there.
And I accept that I'm wrong on this, but I can't help what I feel. That's what my heart tells me.
You are I opened my mouth to say that nobody was going to rip you for liking Prince of Darkness around these parts. But then the putting your number one above it being Big Trouble was the curveball that really set me back on my heels there.
Oh,
That's one we love too.
I get that. Yeah. Uh-huh. But this one is a challenge. A lot going on in this film. Really ambitious. I think a bit messy, but man, it is a unique film. This one, like many Carpenter films, took a long road to being a cult favorite. This was another one that was kind of just didn't get good reviews or good notices. It was so cheap to make that it was fine financially. But you know, it was just kind of another Carpenter film when it was released, and now it's part of the Apocalypse trilogy, and has insane people like Sal who are just like this. This is the finest of all of the films, and I'm not entirely sure where I fall on that, to be honest. This was the third time I've seen Prince of Darkness, and I would say this is the first time I really got it. I think this is when
you mean you just got on a basic level of understanding the plot, or like
kind of, yeah, and the appeal of it, but also just why this one has its followers and its fans, because you know it's like I said, there's some mess in here, but man, there's some compelling ideas as well.
Yeah, well, you mentioned like the making of it, how it was dirt cheap to make and all that. It was part of a deal, I guess, that Carpenter made with a studio, well, a distributor or something, that once he was getting disillusioned with the bigger studios after all the rigmarole he'd been through on all the other movies we talked about, where he basically had a deal with them he would give them 1-sentence pitches that they could approve or thumbs up or thumbs down. And if they give him the thumbs up, he got $3 million in total final cut on everything.
That's cool.
And that is a good deal. And it turns out this is a movie that you can make for $3 million. It's weird. I also could see you accidentally splurging and spending $30 million on this movie somehow.
Yeah. Sure.
But he did it, I guess he called in a couple favors with Alice Cooper and did it on the cheap.
That was Prince of Darkness and They Live were both part of the same deal. And I would say pretty high creative watermark right there. A real good situation for Carpenter. Wish he'd done more of these. That would have been good, I think. Yeah.
They both have a genesis, apparently, that I read the other day, of Carpenter met both Alice Cooper and Rowdy Piper at WrestleMania 3.
Yes.
Yeah. And made friends with them and then put them in these movies.
Yeah,
It's
like one of the
fantastic.
conditions of Alice Cooper being part of it was like, bring that like wheel spiky prop that you've got in your stage show, like bring that to the movie set. I want to see that in action. That was one of the deals of Alice Cooper being part of this.
Where you the bicycle stab or whatever is going on.
Yes,
Yeah.
that little like apparently that was part of Alice Cooper's stage show when he'd be in concerts. And
Oh wow.
yeah,
It
Carpenter
makes so
loved
much more
that.
sense in that context.
Yes, because
I'm just looking at this going, what is this guy doing?
why is this happening? Yeah,
And then it's like,
But no,
the victim's standing there like, what does the victim think he's about to do? What is he?
what a nice pointy wheel you have. Show me more. Let me stand here and listen to your music, Alice, while you stab me. That's weird. But no, like what you mentioned about the budget on this and like sort of like the quick shoot, it was like that, 30 days or something crazy, and like the low budget, like that's part of what I love about this film so much. That is just, it is sometimes I feel more genius comes out when you are limited in your time and your money and you have to make do with it. Sometimes amazing things like this film happen, and that's part of what I love about it.
I mean, proof's in the pudding, right? I mean, this is also like he just made The Thing and Big Trouble in Little China, both what are probably, I would say by acclaim, some of the greatest, most popular John Carpenter films that both
argument.
Yeah, received terribly. Giant Bombs, badly reviewed. I mean, Big Trouble.
Yeah, I mean, they were not at the time.
Yeah, exactly. They were disasters, both of them. And, I could see wanting to get the hell out of the Hollywood system. And yeah, it resulted
but
in
he
this.
sprinkled Starman and Christine in there too, which were, modest successes, right? I mean, by financial terms.
But they're not as good as Big Trouble or The Thing.
No, they're not.
No.
I wasn't on the Starman episode. That movie's nowhere near as interesting as Prince of Darkness.
Yeah. Or
just opt out that episode altogether. Like, no.
I had a child that like day.
All right. I guess it's more important. Fair enough.
An Earth child. I want to make
not
clear.
Not a Star Child.
No, not a Star Child. Regular human copulation. Yeah. So anyway, Prince of Darkness, the one sentence log line that he sold them on this is it's a weird one. This is a strange picture. Let's maybe level set there. So the premise of this movie is that there is a secret sect of Catholic monks that have a jar of liquid Satan in the basement of a Los Angeles church.
Yeah, South Central, Compton, in fact.
Right.
Yes. The Brotherhood of Sleep.
Where you expect to find a jar of Lucifer concentrate. And now you hear that, you think, okay, this is probably like an Exorcist type movie, right? This is mystical shit. You probably don't assume that the heroes of this film are a bunch of grad students in particle physics.
Yes, so
and the movie is mostly about quantum mechanics.
Well,
but also the Christian devil.
Well, is it the Christian? I mean, I guess it is. Yeah,
it is the Christian devil. Although Christ himself is an extraterrestrial envoy that was sent to Earth and murdered.
What a thing to drop!
Like
what
the fifth wildest thing these people hear that day.
And they all take it really well too. Like,
yeah, there's not like a devout Christian among them. It seems like who gives a shit about that part of it.
Yeah. I mean, Pleasance doesn't. Pleasance is super pissed actually.
His crisis of faith is
yes.
Watching
but
that's
it's baseline Pleasance. He's just about as pissed as he is on Halloween 4, No,
the church has done it again. Yeah, right. Great bit of casting. Did you notice his name in this film? It's Priest.
Yes.
He's a lot of fun. I mean, we're pretty used to seeing Donald Pleasance in these films at this point. Halloween, Escape from New York. This, I don't know. I was about to say this is my favorite of his performances in a Carpenter film, but I don't know. Yeah. Loomis is pretty iconic. I don't know, but it's up there.
No, he's great. But it's not fair to compare it to Loomis.
Well, Loomis is a better character because of the legacy and the years of other Loomis performances he's given. But man, when he has monologues about the moral cowardice of the Catholic Church, that's good stuff, man. That's really cool. Excellent. Having that little survival horror sequence where he's hiding from a zombie. This is all great. And just scenes of him and Victor Wong talking about the intersection of science and religion. I wish there'd been an 8-minute scene of that. That might be my favorite.
There's more of it than you expect.
Yeah.
From that log line.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's sort of the sort of the super premise of this. Really, it's that like what if they're both right? I guess is the idea, and kind of a fun theoretical thing to play around with.
There's a line later in the film where they talk about how this evil was sealed because the science of the humans at the time wasn't ready to handle it, and like the math wasn't there yet or the science wasn't there yet. So now that it's there, we need to bring in these scientists to help deal with this devil liquid.
Yep.
They attempt to justify it. I'm not claiming it works, but God, it's fun to watch.
Victor Wong, as the wonderful casting as the quantum physics professor. Amazing. He's got that fabulous monologue about his hypothesis of the anti-god who exists in the negative space of all creation. And that's about as much exposition as you really get on how this all works, but it's wonderfully evocative, and the insinuations that this movie kind of lets you sit with are part of the most fun of it. You know, there's certainly a Lovecraft quality to it all, but mostly just in the way that things aren't fully explained, and that you're kind of just left to grapple with it all. Maybe a universal mind resides in the mirror image, and he's bringing darkness instead of light. I mean, he sounds like his Big Trouble in Little China character as often as not, spitting out lore. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, okay. If there are, let me take the negative tack on this. Let me be the anti-god of this podcast. Bring some darkness to light. If I'm going to criticize this movie, it's that it's a bit lumpy. In its pacing. It takes a while to get going. All hell doesn't really break loose until over halfway through, which is kind of unusual for Carpenter. I suppose Halloween was that way too. But the other thing I guess you could say about it is sort of John Carpenter greatest hits, or playing a little bit of bingo, where it is Donald Pleasance railing about the, omnipresence of pure evil or whatever that comes from Halloween. It becomes finally, once the movie really gets going, into sort of a siege scenario of assault, same like Assault on Precinct 13 with zombies instead of just gang members that act like zombies, and the goo infecting people and turning them is very reminiscent of The Thing. So it's sort of mashing up The Thing and Assault on Precinct 13 and throwing in Dr. Loomis and a couple of the Big Trouble in Little China stars too. And, does it do any of those things better than the component parts did them? I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. I think there's still quite a bit of good stuff that comes out of the mismatch. But if there's one other thing I would critique the movie for, I think, is that's genuinely biggest problem is that it's two romantic leads are like the least interesting, least charismatic figures in the movie.
That is a gigantic issue with the film. These guys kind of suck, especially
Handlebar.
Yeah, as played by Jameson Parker, an actor no one has heard of, no one ever, right. And yeah, he is a zero.
No, when you said the character name, I assumed that was the actor's name because it was such a nothing of a white guy name, and Jameson Parker at least sounds like a movie character.
but even no, like this guy he exists in Prince of Darkness and nothing else.
How dare you besmirch Simon and Simon? How dare you?
Oh, is that what he's from? Is that okay?
That's a claim to TV fame. Yeah,
a TV show. Okay, yeah, a show that is long forgotten. Yeah, I'm coming for Jameson Parker in this episode for sure.
All right.
What a weak link. But no, I hear you. But that actually is interesting that this is sort of the Carpenter greatest hits. I hadn't really put that together, but yeah, it is. On the other hand, you would never call this film generic. This is
no.
Yeah, there's some wild swings in this that you've never seen in any movie before. That the science religion stuff kind of leading the way there. Yeah, Alien Jesus, my God, just stop. Can't get over that.
It's a throwaway. Yeah.
Yeah, I made my wife watch this, and she was like, that came up, and she was like, wait a minute. I thought he just said, what did he actually say? Because I thought she said that Jesus was an alien. Is that what? And what did she actually mean? It was like, no, that's what she meant. That's
You're just confused because nobody reacted to that that assertion.
They took it as calmly as Satan's in the basement, and we only have apples in the break room. Like all three were equally received.
That is part of the charm on films of this type. I mean, this is such a B movie. I mean, written by Carpenter, as Martin Quatermass is the pseudonym he uses, which of course, if you're familiar with Quatermass, that is I'm not particularly. My sense is it's a weird British sort of Lovecraftian version of Doctor Who kind of thing. It's something that was popular in the 60s and 70s. Sort of there were a series of films about it's
a homage to a British horror sci-fi thing that apparently the British horror sci-fi author did not appreciate.
Good times. So he's in a mode, but I guess it does kind of feel like homage to himself a lot of the time.
Yeah,
it's the concept. It's sort of a kitchen sink horror concept that I think you get these out there sometimes. I think like It from Stephen King, for example.
Sure.
Or there's a book I remember when I was younger called Summer of Night by Dan Simmons. That was
Dan Simmons is It, yes.
Similar, Dan Simmons is It, exactly. And it's just sort of the premise is set up such that it can justify kind of any sort of weird creepiness you want or any sort of set piece you want to set up. It's just like, well, yeah, but it's a shape-shifting, formless evil thing that's manifesting in these indirect ways or whatever. And Carpenter gets some mileage out of that. It doesn't, I mean, it's so hard to, once you've done the thing in Halloween, it's hard to do completely new stuff on top of that, that doesn't evoke it somehow.
Yeah. I looked at this as like, there's an elements of, like you said, a lot of his prior work, but like The Thing meets a zombie film meets Rosemary's Baby. Like there's just so many odd concepts all thrown at once. And like, let's see what sticks. And to John's point, the thing that does not stick is the romance plot. That just could be completely removed from this movie and we'd be fine.
Yeah, I mean, make Pleasance and Victor Wong the actual protagonists, I think would help a lot, Keep the grad students, the oldest college students ever, keep them in there, just for bodies, for people to get killed by things.
I actually like that they're not undergrads. They're grad students, so I don't mind that Dirk Blocker is among them. But yeah, I mean, keep Dennis Dunn in there. He's only person having any fun in this movie, I feel like.
Oh my God, he's having such a good time.
He's playing like an American Pie character. It's odd to see him doing that after seeing him in Big Trouble as, basically I mean, we talked about this in The Thing. Is he the hero? He's an adult at least. He's playing Jason Biggs.
Right.
Like, yeah.
I was going to say Stifler, but yeah, he's
a combination of all, really. All the American Pies in one body. I'm not a huge fan of that performance, to be honest.
It sticks out so much compared to what everyone else is doing. You're like, what?
Right.
He's just having his own time. And I kind of, again, I saw this after Big Trouble in Little China, so I'm like, I love seeing him just go crazy and like, oh, there's some scenery. Let me devour this completely. Like, I'm here for it. Get your moment, Dennis.
Yeah, and it's, well, I don't want to go back to Jameson Parker. So he's like, at a certain point, my only one to latch onto.
I mean, Jameson Parker, this character did kind of clue me into one thing that I've kind of recognized now, having watched a lot of these Carpenters this year. How we're talking about directors, and they have kind of calling cards they keep returning to, the Nolan dead wife and things like that. I think that one of Carpenter's is a dude with a mustache engaging in casual hookup sex is a big recurring motif in Carpenter films.
Well, but this movie kind of seems like it pivots 2/3 of the way through and decides that no, actually, this is a love for the ages. I mean, here's something when I talked about the lumpiness earlier, and weirdly, I think this is something that winds up working more to the movie's benefit than its detriment. But it doesn't feel like it really nails down what this movie is, what's going on, until very deep into the movie. I think that you could offer some, more by the book screenplay critiques of this and say that like you need to introduce that dream sequence vision from the future thing before the halfway point of the movie. That just pops up halfway through the movie and like, whoa, that's a big swing that we're now not really explaining that well. And is going to now be a recurring element, including like the sort of final haunting image is going to be based around that. And even
You're almost
like
an hour in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're 20 minutes from the end and then suddenly it's like, okay, I guess everything revolves around reaching into mirrors now. That's the mirrors are the basis of this anti-god's power somehow. And
well, it's the reflective verse, the anti version of.
Yeah, I kind of get that
existence.
conceptually. It's not it's not exposited really in the film at all. But something about that, there is a sort of nightmare logic to it about how things keep shifting, and you get this vague idea of there being a rules, but they're kind of changing on you as you go. And I'm reminded of the of Lopan yelling at Jack Burton that you're not put on this earth to get it. And it's like, yeah, I guess maybe the anti-god's rules aren't really designed to fit neatly into screenplay structure. But I think it ultimately helps the oppressive and creepy atmosphere of the back half of this movie. But you could also mark it as in the column of flaws in this movie.
I do think there are structural issues. It is I don't feel there's a great narrative drive here. In part because of all the things you're saying. I like the way exposition is doled out, and in a sort of you're going to get some of this, but not all of it kind of way. I think he does that better than just about anybody. We were talking about this also in Big Trouble, but I mean, in the absence of an actual kind of narrative spine to this, it just sort of falls into Slumber Party Massacre for a good chunk of it, and it doesn't feel boring at any point because he keeps lobbing wild ideas at you. That never stops. The dream from the future that shows up an hour in is a great example of that. There's just too many conceptual things he wants to get off his chest here and try out that it always has its own identity. But, narratively, we're cutting between three scenes going on at once most of the time here. It's kind of hard to very few scenes just play out. And when they do, it's usually a kill scene or something like that. It's lumpy. Lumpy is a good word for it.
Yeah, we don't. Are the people who they are the kills? We don't get to know any of them that well. I mean,
no.
Am I most upset by
usually introduced to them when they get killed? Right.
I feel like maybe Dirk Blocker was the person who I felt like I got the most to know before their death scene. But that can't be right. that's maybe Peter Jason, I guess. Got a few scenes before he got vomited upon. That is a thing that
the girl who gets possessed. What's her name? Is that Kelly?
Lisa, or Kelly Lisa. Who gets possessed by it? Kelly's the one who absorbs the goo. If that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, the one who gets absorbs the goo and turns into Satan's avatar on Earth. That one. Yeah. She's got a bit more going on, I guess. Not really.
I guess the Asian girl is probably the one that we got the most because she does exposition.
Lisa gets some lines,
Mm-hmm.
And then, so Kelly is the one that eventually becomes the host body?
I believe so. She's the one who got nothing, and it's like, I'm tired.
It's already there, the sword of whatever mark. Like, by the time I was like, who is this?
Her
she's already marked.
Right. Yeah.
There's so many moments in this movie where I'm like, how stupid are these people? I still, again, saying all this with love, like some of the choices they make or moves they make, like this is completely like, and then I remind myself, it's 3 a.m. They just found out alien Jesus
was an alien.
Buried alien Satan in the basement of this church 2 blocks from UCLA or something crazy. And it's like, okay, they're dealing with a lot. I can accept that maybe there's a little brain fog going on and they make some not so great choices.
Yeah, one of the things that could use a little more explanation is why it's the priest who thinks this is an existential threat to humanity just goes to the physics department of the local university as his only ask for help.
Yeah, there's a lot of, and there I feel like the miss, as a lover of the film, I will keep saying that the biggest miss for me, even bigger than the miss on the love plot, was the differential equations and the math that they're getting from the book. Like they go into how amazing it is that these equations exist, but they do nothing with that.
Right.
And that kind of bummed me out. I'm like, that could have been interesting, but I don't need it. But like, why did you bother? Like, just mention it once and move on. Don't have her translating it for hours, and like, it doesn't lead to anything. Unfortunately,
I mean, it's cool.
It's very cool.
Like, it asks more questions than it answers. One of those things that this movie tends to do a lot. I do think all this stuff in the hopper. There's a streamlined, better thought out version of this film that exists, or it doesn't exist, but that could exist.
And
like
but is that movie less scary? Is what I kind of got to.
This is a scary one.
If you can make sense of it,
it is an unsettling film. Yeah, I do feel like, I don't know, there's a narrative path through this that makes a little more sense and maintains all that. Maybe it's just tweaks to the Jameson Parker character. Maybe, we don't need to see him like being rewarded for his terrible flirting.
Right?
You mean his awkwardly staring at her until he corners her? Yeah.
And then magic tricks and sexist jokes. That's his game. Like, wow.
Yeah.
That shouldn't work.
Yeah.
No, and listen, one of the things that's like, okay, this doesn't apply to the horror mythology stuff being a little unknowable and that being extra scary. It's like, they should have decided before they started filming this, like, is this a casual hookup or is this a love for the ages? Because if it's a love for the ages, we don't need to establish that they went on one date when she apparently had a boyfriend at the start of the movie or something. Like,
just make them a couple. Just make them a couple.
They're already together. That's like,
move it along.
They're talking about getting married. Yeah. It's a much shorter scene, and they have a much more clear and obvious relationship that matters.
But like you said, to that like Halloween 3, like, oh, help me find my dad. Oh, by the way, you're so attractive, I have to sleep with you, 40-year-old man. Like there's that element of like, look at this virile mustached 40-year-old. I don't know why that keeps popping up.
He does want to include that.
It's Carpenter at his most Woody Allen. Because this guy, I mean, he's got it's a Carpenter mustache. Like, it's, I don't know how much I mean, and I guess, maybe it's a little bit of a Carpenter insert, personality wise, because Carpenter
I think so.
strikes me as ornery to some extent. Yeah. Not a huge extent, but I don't know. I mean, Carpenter's a weird guy. It's hard to get a handle on. It seems like this blue collar, very unpretentious guy that also made this weird ass horror movie because he got off on a jaunt on quantum mechanics and particle physics when he was 37 years old or something,
Yeah. It's very, and John, I don't know if you run this in background, like theater acting and stuff. Like, it reminds me a lot of hearing about Arcadia by Tom Stoppard, how like he just heard about some science thing he thought was fun, so he just threw a play around it. Like, this strikes me as that same kind of movie of like, Carpenter was really into like quantum physics and like, this sounds fun. Let's throw some goo and zombies at it and just see what happens.
I am delighted at the premise that Arcadia is Tom Stoppard's Prince of Darkness. That's really cool.
I will make that claim. Better love story.
Fantastic.
Better love story in Arcadia. But.
Well, yes, it is. But it is kind of like.
Does it have as good of a role for Alice Cooper?
Oh God, he would be an amazing turtle.
That is fun. It is actually similarly about the intersection of science and religion, or art and science, I guess is how it's phrased there. Okay. No one cares about that. Except me and you, Sal.
We'll learn about that later.
Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
Does he look like Kevin Nealon?
A little bit, yeah.
Like, I saw him in this and I was like, I look like fucking Kevin Nealon. And then I played back other Alice Cooper memories, Wayne's World and such, and I was like, he
a little bit.
He actually looks a lot like Kevin Nealon.
He's so skinny. Too. If you catch Kevin Nealon at his thinnest and Alice Cooper at his heaviest set, then yes, there is some overlap.
He's tall, sort of got that, the tall face as well. And that's my big Alice Cooper take. He resembles Kevin Nealon in this.
No, this is exactly
and he
the
stabs
type
a guy with a bicycle
of hard-hitting journalism that we set out to do with this podcast series.
Sorry.
And didn't he do like one of the 3 songs in the movie? Like, if you watch the end credits, like Alice Cooper performed and wrote one of the like only songs in the film used. Like, I think that was his music.
I don't remember there being any lyrics in the movie anywhere.
There weren't lyrics, but I think he composed and played one of the songs. Like, you don't hear his voice, but I think I think there was a song in the end credits, Prince of Dark or something like that he actually wrote. I
think it is the end credits, yes. Good score though. Another good Carpenter score. A lot of fun. Yep.
Should we talk a little more about that dream sequence or whatever? I mean, that's the lasting image from this, right? The sort of that's Carpenter leaning into found footage in a way that I don't think I've seen him do anywhere else.
This is.
I
want
mean,
to go back
it kind
to.
of predates it in a way.
Oh, go ahead, John. Sorry.
Well, no, I mean, this is a great. You know how they got this look for the future transmissions?
Mm-mm.
Really cool. They shot it, and then they played it on a VCR and shot the screen.
Yeah, just film the television screen.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's why it looks that way. That's really, really cool.
And it's
really
very
neat,
effective.
Lo-fi. Yeah,
Mhm.
That's interesting. And man, it's such a the way it pops up. Like you said, an hour in, with no real announcement. It's just all of a sudden you're seeing imagery and you're hearing this voice. This is from the future. This is not a dream, and it's beautiful. It's one of the most effective things in the entire film, really, and it does kind of amount to nothing ultimately, other than just the
How dare you?
Well, it sets up the gotcha ending.
No, I got to push back on that. I love that bit.
I love it too. But does it affect the narrative in any way other than it's a cool thing that happens?
Here's what I'll argue, and
Okay.
again, prove me wrong. And first off, Al, you asked me about like my experience with this film and why it's such a place in my heart. I watched this high school. I started John Carpenter, and I was that weird friend who wanted to watch all the horror films with other friends. So got this one, and you're watching the VHS tape, and there's no subtitles. So you're like trying to crank the volume up and not play too loud because your parents are sleeping. Of like, what is that video saying? You're trying to make out the words and what's going on. Watching it with subtitles doesn't do it justice. So like just the weirdness and otherworldliness of that video. And then as it comes back at the end, not only for the ending gotcha moment and you see, the change and who's at the doorway, but just, it's also sort of the unifying thing when they're in the church and they're all thinking this is madness, or I believe in this, wherever they're on the spectrum of how much they believe what's going on in the basement. The one thing they all cannot deny is they're all having this dream. And I think that's an important element for them to all accept of what's going on.
I'm not saying it should be removed from the film. It is obviously incredibly effective and cool. I'm not arguing against it at all. I recant any statements I may have made on that way, because it is super cool. Yeah,
this movie also, for as wildly ambitious as it is and as big of a cast as it really has, and for all the different places it's going, it's an hour and 40 minutes long. It's not in that It's the Stephen King's
the maximalist.
It. Yeah, it's not. It's a lean and mean version of Stephen King's It.
Yeah,
that's
packs a lot in.
Yeah, I could do it with a longer version of this. Honestly, like
Sure.
I said, I want an 8-minute scene of Victor Wong and Donald Pleasance talking about shit.
Up to a point, though, because I did wonder, why is this one that hasn't been remade? And then because it seems like you could redo this premise and make a considerably different movie out of it.
Yeah,
if you so desired. But now I'm like, the window, I think, has closed on that, because now it would be a 10-episode miniseries in which nothing happened for 6 episodes. And we probably spent 2 episodes on the differential equations or whatever. And maybe actually that helps the differential equations a little, but
I wouldn't say no to that, honestly. I mean, it probably would not be able to match the invention of this. And, well, no, I guess I would say no to it, just on principle, because make a new version of this, do something that is equally as creative would be the better thing to do, but that's not easy. And I can think of other films that would benefit less from a remake than this. And again, the track record has been very poor. We've been watching the remakes as we watch the films for the most part, and I don't know, have any of them been okay? Assault on Precinct 13 was okay. That's about as far as I can go.
Yeah, barely managing okay. Scraping.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's varying opinions on what the half-dozen remakes of Halloween, like where they all rank.
Sure. I mean, I wouldn't take those away, but that's not because they're good.
Yeah. But yeah, you'd probably find some non-crank out there who would claim that David Gordon Green's Halloween is better than the original, but nobody's going to say that about The Thing or Assault on Precinct 13 or The Fog, for God's sake. Definitely not The Fog.
Have you seen the remake of The Fog, Sal?
I have not seen that one.
It's running neck and neck with Piranha 2, the spawning for the worst thing we've watched for this podcast, I would say.
Wow. Those are strong words.
Yeah. We didn't even have to do that. We just both chose to do it to ourselves without consulting each other.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
You're that in sync. That's amazing. But no, on the TV series versions, I think what would set this one apart from others, and again, not to blaspheme, like, again, The Thing would do this as well too, but there's something about this one has so much lore jam-packed in that you could really extrapolate that out. And that's what would be the filler episodes, like The Fly for Breaking Bad. Like, I'm watching them talk an hour about these equations because, I want to dig into that. I want to hear about space Jesus. I want to know all this stuff. But
yeah, I mean, you do an entire flashback that takes place in the Roman, like, you do it, whatever. I don't care. Be as weird as you want. Yeah. Have the events of the movie Prince of Darkness take up the first 3 episodes, and then there's 5 more that happen afterwards. You have to be weird with it and break it and just do all sorts of crazy shit and and kind of be inspired by the ideas of this thing. Rather, I mean, take all the characters out too. Replace all the characters.
Well,
because
you need
it's
a version of Pleasance and Wong.
Yes, you do. But you don't need a character to be playing the character that Donald Pleasance played. No,
and you definitely don't need any of the particular students. You don't. You don't need Sean William Scott to actually play the Dennis Dunn's character.
But
I mean, so this is why I'm okay with it. If it's a massive rewrite, I guess. Yeah.
Like, and I like having Peter Jason there, but we don't need that guy particularly.
They just put actual Peter Jason in it. That's cool too. Is he still with us, Peter Jason?
I don't think so, but
this is his first Carpenter. He ends up being in like most of them after this, I believe.
Was he not in Starman?
No.
No, it was Dirk Blocker that was in.
Buck Flower is in there.
Yeah. Oh, I apologize. Peter Jason is still with us.
Oh, good.
Born Peter Edward Ostling.
He was in Deadwood, right? The movie?
Yes, he was Con Stapleton.
Yeah. Of course. So there you go. I guess that was some time ago now. Probably like 5 years since Deadwood the movie.
Wow. Yeah, I guess so. Oh man, that goes fast.
Yeah.
No, it's we again get a lot of Carpenter All-Stars here, but nobody's best work in a Carpenter movie. It feels like,
but it's a collection of B+, A- that I'm happy to watch all of their almost greats. But when you mash them all together, I love the meal. That's where I'm at.
It's a big shepherd's pie of a horror movie. But for all that, I have a hard time placing it in the rankings, which I guess we'll do a ranking episode. But
sure, but this is not top tier for me. I mean, as a result of just sort of the shapelessness of it. But it's mid tier for sure, and it is probably moved up in the mid tier in this last viewing. Definitely has. I've never been more of a fan of this, and it's because of all the crazy shit going on. You will not be saved by the god plutonium. What does that mean? I don't know. It's great though. It's evocative and scary, and I'm leaning in when that happens. I'm just like, huh? What about this now?
That is, I wanted this movie to be a bit better than it was ultimately, and I think it's, other than the stuff I cited about the romance, whatever, there are some of the most effective bits are undermined by little picayune carps I have. Like the transmission saying that it's from the year 1999. Like, we stopped using 1990 9 in the 12 years. What do you
look? You get like a couple second bursts with tachyon particles. You got to be very succinct. They just want to be clear,
right? And that very creepy scene where she's just typing. I live. And then types out, "You will not be saved by the Holy Ghost. You will not be saved by the god plutonium." And that's such a cool. Again, you're right. What is he even referencing there exactly? Not really sure, but I mean, it's saying that religion and science are both will not avail you, you poor pathetic mortals, and that's cool and whatever that. But she follows it up by typing, "In fact, comma, you will not be saved!" Exclamation point.
I mean. Again, they're really going for clarity. They just want you to know.
But something about the language there is just it turns it so quickly around a corner from scary to hilarious to me. Like, I think it just needed to be, "You will not be saved." Period. Like, pause. Period. Not by not by Holy Ghost, not by plutonium. You will not be saved. Dot. But we got the "in fact" comma, which is like makes it feel like he's being a little sassy.
And the all caps just to really punch it. Yeah, it's great.
That's sort of Stephen King-ish too. Just sort of like mundane monster evil. Like just sort of.
Well, it's very much like all work and no play. Yeah. It's inspired by all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy for sure. Mm-hmm.
That's fun though. Isn't that fun?
But also, he that's also exactly the kind of like mustard that Stephen King sometimes puts on with his colloquialisms.
I don't know. It's sort of in. No, this is not really a Stephen King type thing. I mean, there's overlap because they're big '80s horror guys, I guess. You know, I mean, obviously he's made explicit King, and then In the Mouth of Madness, third part of the Apocalypse trilogy, is a lot more directly about King. But this is not quite there. I guess it just has those these similar sort of malapropisms and indulgences, I guess you'd say.
Right.
But I like those. I like those in both King and Carpenter.
The feeling that the story hasn't figured out what it is and the rules are still getting nailed down 2/3 of the way in is a very Stephen King feeling. When you're in one of his longer books and you're 650 pages in, and it feels like he suddenly decided on what the rules of the monster actually are.
He wrote this without an outline. I got the feeling, that kind of thing. This movie has that in spades.
Yeah, it's a very Searchlight rather than plotting storyline. Yeah, like I'll figure it out as I go. We'll just throw this down for a couple hundred. But that disorientation for me is a feature, not a bug. Especially like watching this late at night or being half asleep, like never being on solid footing or understanding the rules is part of what makes this so effective for me.
I agree with this.
Yeah, I said the same thing about The Fog, but I do wish that I had just stumbled across this on TV when I was 13 or 14 and missed the opening 15 minutes and just was trying to figure out what was going on. Because the opening 15 minutes don't even do that much to help situate you.
I mean, I think you have that experience just watching it straight through as well. Like, this one keeps you kind of like guessing and trying to figure it out. This is a dream logic movie, this is one that feels like a nightmare. And that's a bit of a cliche to describe a film that way, but this actually is that. This has all the different stuff that doesn't get explained but is sort of haunting and striking and just sticks with you in some ineffable way. I mean, that is this movie in spades. And I believe that Carpenter is actually one of the best at this, like a lot of his movies. Even Big Trouble, which is not remotely a horror film, is kind of I don't know. I don't think vibes movie is the right word, but it's not important that you get every detail, because within 5 minutes you're onto a new thing, a new idea that gets tossed at you, and you just kind of it all makes part of one dish that has a lot of different things going on in it. Sometimes he doesn't do that. Halloween obviously is not that kind of movie, but here in the midsection of his career, he's like acing this vibe.
Halloween is pointed about refusing to explain Michael Myers.
Yes.
And not wanting to give you a dissertation that explains, the guy at the end of Psycho comes in and gives you a psychological profile. But yeah, I don't know. And does the movie make enough of how it's this dream logic, anti-logic in some ways? And it's
like that.
Attempting to be parsed by these scientists that ultimately the students seem a little too sloppy in their scientific methods to really get across that these are people like trying to apply rationality to the inherently irrational, and that's what's fucking them up.
And what saves them? It's love.
Oh God. Well, they're not saved, are they?
Just generic horniness in Dennis Dunn's case.
Hey, he was going to say something, but he wasn't ready to say it yet. Or no, she was going to say it. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But no, like,
did you see
again,
the
shoehorn love?
Doesn't.
Did you see the what was the guy? Kenneth Muir, I think. The guy who wrote an essay on the homosexual themes of this film, all of which live in Dennis Dunn's character for the most part. I didn't buy it, to be honest. I didn't quite convince me.
I saw the two sentences in the Wikipedia entry that mentioned this. I didn't read the actual essay, but something about how he's trapped in a closet in the third act being attacked by women.
Possessed women are attacking him. He gets out of the closet. Yeah, that's.
And there's a couple like
the thrust of it.
Yeah, little R. Kelly vibe.
That was me trying to say thrust and crux in one word there, by the way.
But there's sort of I caught it this time that I did not catch the first time I watched. There's sort of some throwaway insinuations about him being gay early on, or at least just making like homophobic jokes at him also earlier in Act 1. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I did not read the essay.
I just think it was the 80s and we were making homophobic jokes, is I think what that is.
More likely.
That's my guess.
Sadly.
There's also, there's a way to read this as AIDS metaphor, but I think that's very surface level and not great. Doesn't have much to say if it is, that's for sure.
No, but it's just part of people were scared of infectious disease in the 80s.
Yeah. I've been transmitted the goo disease. That begins and ends right there.
I will say it's a very basic effect, but I was never not grossed out by the goo being just peed into somebody's mouth.
Yep.
It's a gross movie, man.
Yeah.
Kind of top to bottom.
It is. I mean, it reminds me very much of the dog being sprayed in The Thing, which is such an upsetting moment. Tell that he still had the super soaker that they used for that lying around. But man, guys, I don't know if I found the goo dripping upwards to be quite as unsettling as the movie wanted it to be, because it still just looked like a puddle dripping.
Yeah.
There were a lot of those reverse shots, like the goo, the bugs on the windows. There's a lot of just let's film this and run it backwards and see what happens.
Yeah, I do like all the signs and portents that are surrounding the church. The red ants everywhere, just worms apparently thrown on a window or whatever's going on there. All that stuff.
Yeah, the ants crawling on the back of the TV monitor is a really gross, unsettling image for some reason.
Yeah, and just the sort of the crazy nightmare stuff, like the guy getting killed in the parking lot with one part of a shear.
So good.
Yeah. Then he comes back.
His coming back is amazing. Yeah. I can't believe we haven't talked about that yet.
Yeah. It's fantastic. I've got a message, and you're not going to like
it.
The half shear murder is also one of those things where it kind of turns the corner quickly, because it's horrifying when you see the shear running towards him, and then he gets stabbed. You're like, oh, damn. And then you see him get stabbed a couple more times, and it's like, oh God, this is even worse than I thought. And then you see him get stabbed 6 or 8 more times, and it starts to become kind of funny in a Family Guy chicken fight kind of way. Maybe Sideshow Bob and the Rakes is more of a rip. But
there is comedy in this a little bit.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's there's things that are funny in this, and the absurdity. I think is part of that. It is the it is the, we've talked so often in this particular series about the close relationship of comedy and horror, but I think that the absurdity,
particularly in a Carpenter movie, it
scratches both those things, and it could present as sort of an uncomfortable laughter at, in fact, you will not be saved. That's funny, but it's also, it's, no, that was just funny. but it's full of those sort of things where just the illogic of a thing gives you a confusing reaction. Like, it can be off-putting, but also kind of like a, well, and bugs on the window is that imagery. The guy, I've got a message, you're not going to like it. That's similar too. And then his head falls off and he explodes into a mountain of beetles. Yeah, like stuff like that.
Yes.
Very few people can find this tone successfully, and it's one of his best qualities. He can do this in all his movies, really. Yeah. But this particular period, the 80s, I think, is really when he was firing on all cylinders for it.
The other version of that, too, I feel like we haven't mentioned quite enough, is that this movie revolves around a jar of liquid Satan.
Right.
That's a hard thing.
A perpetual whirlpool
seriously,
effect.
As this movie needs.
Yeah. You could see that thing in a haunted house attraction, like you would. Yeah. They would have that as part of the scenery of,
Yeah, it could have been in the wacky shack at the amusement park.
It's like when you're waiting in line for the ride, you just stare at the goo while you're waiting to slowly meander forward to get down to the next ride.
And it's a cheap effect too, but it's effective for all that. I like that.
But then the body horror of the woman being taken over by the Prince of Darkness is actually kind of upsetting. It's definitely a makeup job. You never lose sight of that, but it is really gross, and it's right front and center on screen for a long time.
Yeah, that is striking, and I don't like it. And in memory, I thought I didn't like it because it looked bad, but I reminded myself in this viewing, I don't like it because it looks gross. It is unpleasant to behold, and yeah, it does look like makeup, but it's nonetheless, it seems to get grosser as it progresses, and we see it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as distinctive as the grossness of The Thing, but that's such an unfair standard to hold things to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But and all of the, sort of the decomposition and the grossness of all of them, and even the homeless people, which the metaphor of the working ants that are the homeless people that surround the place and make it the siege. Like I like the whole bugs crawling around versus the homeless folks. And in the same way, at the end, once like I'm leaning in on this line. I love this through line of like once the evil is dispersed at the end, quote unquote, we're done, or at least for now, done. How the homeless people all just disperse. Like the central hive mind queen controlling them is sort of gone, and now they're like, okay, we'll just walk away now. Like I like that the way that theme is layered in there.
What is the rationale that they are? Something about schizophrenia makes people more susceptible to the wavelengths of the jar of Satan.
Something like that. Yeah, it's and so that was
positing that every homeless person is a
very These look it was not kind. And that was one of my two big problems.
Bad taste.
Yes, it was like, these poor homeless people. They're useless and worthless anyway. They're just worker bees. And
well, his next film is They Live, so he's not like he makes up for it, I guess.
He turns it around. But them just not having why Satan just didn't use his ant army and needed scientists. I was always curious. I'm like, you've already got people. Just bring one of them in, goo them up. And the other big thing I hated about this movie, or the illogical one thing that always threw me out, was the candles. Who the hell is putting all those candles in the basement and keeping those lit? That's the one thing I was like, what? How?
That's how? I mean, that's there's some nun. That's her whole job. But I mean, any movie with the devil and demons, you're going to have a room full of candles at some point. But like, it looks cool.
Over time, they're always there. I'm like, who is doing these candles? That's all I want to know. Like, who? That of all the illogical, that's the one that throws me. That's
okay. The one that throws me is when Pleasance is doing his sort of download about the Brotherhood of Sleep. Brotherhood of Sleep, not the best name for a secretive sect I've ever heard of. Doesn't sound as ominous as maybe it shouldn't have. It sounds like you're part of the rewards club at Serta Mattresses. But when Pleasance is talking about this and how the Vatican doesn't even know about them, they're so secreted. And then he says that they wield enormous power and influence. And I was like, wait, what? How? Yeah. Like over who? Because if nobody knows they exist, like how are they pulling rank on anybody if nobody knows that their rank exists?
Yeah, and if they were this giant brotherhood, why is there one guy left of it? It's like where's the rest of the brotherhood in this moment of crisis for their organization?
I do wonder. I really like the mundanity of the inner city church that this takes place in. It's just like takes place in LA, and it's a cool rundown place. Yeah. Do you think that is a budget choice? Do you think if Carpenter had his druthers, he could have set this in a Gothic castle on a mansion with a gigantic black spire basilica, kind of like evil looking church deal like he uses in other films.
Yeah, for sure. Or just that it would have been I think this became a siege movie, an Assault on Precinct 13 remake. Mm-hmm. It's mainly as a budgetary consideration.
Probably. Yeah. Well, that's another argument in favor of, returning this material in some way. Because I do believe this is one where, it's almost frustrating because I feel that the great film is kind of just tantalizingly out of reach, with this one. And I get liking it. There's a lot to like. But because there's so much to like, I kind of want it to be the perfect film. And I mean, for Sal, it gets there for you.
Yes.
Not the perfect film, but the great film. And I wish I could get there with it. I got closer this time. But I don't think I'll ever get all the way there.
But I think I'm with you on that, John. That I do. I want it to be something a little more than it is, but there's just these odd exclamation points and push broom mustaches standing between me and that ideal of a film.
Yeah, but
it's not like The Fog, because The Fog I think is just sort of. I will let you get to it. So I'm sorry. I will let you defend this. But like The Fog, for example, is a film I don't think there's a great version of. I think The Fog is kind of what it is. It is a little bit low ambition. There's a few other movies he's made that are just sort of like Christine. It's perfectly fine, but there's a bit of a ceiling on where these ideas are going to take you.
What can you do with a wear car movie?
Yeah. This one, I feel like the ideas and the premise, the sky's the limit, and maybe it's budget. Maybe it was just a little too much to wrangle into an hour and 40-minute narrative. Maybe because it's a lot they're throwing at you here. Yeah, and this is not a problem I think Carpenter usually has. In that, I wish there was more on the bones here. Wish there was a grander, more blown out maximalist version of the story being told, or maybe even just one that does a little more, a few more screenplay edits or drafts. I don't know, but yeah, it's missing one thing, or maybe a few small things or something that keeps it just sort of butting up against top tier.
Well, that's very true. I think this is the first time that of any Carpenter I could say that I wanted more of the movie, other than I could watch 7 seasons of a Jack Burton TV series, like if they want to do that. But
that's like a perfect object, though. That movie, it's the exact right length, and you learn exactly as much as you need to learn about the lore, and and it has the right. It ends at the right time, like most of these do. This movie ends at a pretty good time too, but
just with the wrong character.
Fair mustache. In defense, and I wanted to. In defense, I do want to say that the choice of the church and location and the feel of the whole film. And again, I talked earlier about like the budget and how you had only so much to do and it's limited. Something about that for me grounds it and makes it, for a teenager watching this at 1 a.m., makes it feel, as wacky as it is, makes it feel possible, makes it feel more real than if it was in this overblown, giant budget, huge Gothic church in the middle of nowhere, vampire hunting going in some location that like I would never see. The fact that's in a church that I could have walked down the street and passed made it creepier for me, made it more impactful.
I agree. I think that's all good, actually. I think that's awesome.
And that the grad students are really ill-equipped to deal with this sort of Lovecraftian terror. That you're right. If it becomes too much of a Castlevania movie, then we want vampire hunting. Look, I don't know. I feel like I've spent more time bad-mouthing this movie than praising it, but actually, it's in the positive column for me. I think it's a good movie.
Yeah, it's fun. It's super fun. I mean, I don't know. Might have sounded a little harsh there at the end, but no, this is a cool ass movie. This is I wish there were more, more things like this. I'm way more into this than The Fog because, the ambition is so appealing here. And there's so much great imagery and stuff that no one else has done. And, this is despite having a similar kind of just structure and character base to work off of as your average 80s slasher film. This is so much more than that. And the work of an artist, this is Carpenter as auteur stuff. This is, he can, he's as good a filmmaker as anything. He's just working in this weird genre where films like Prince of Darkness get made.
And it seems like such a project that he just wanted to make it. Like there was no, you can tell this was him in control at the helm and no one giving him notes of like, no, I love these themes. I'm going to throw these all out there and watch what happens.
Yeah. And none of the weirdness or messiness we've cited is the result of studio notes. That is so evident.
Yeah, that's for sure. I like that it's angry a little bit. It's a little bit pissed off at the church and at people in general. It kind of seems to be, this is sort of his nihilistic phase, you might say. He does this.
He's always got
an in the mouth of madness. Yeah, he's always got that. I guess the thing is pretty nihilistic. But yeah, this is angry in a way that those aren't, and They Live is very angry as well in a very goofy way. He doesn't really get political in his films, but when he's pissed off, he does let you know that.
Yeah, I guess a little more so than The Thing. It's like this. This movie thinks that like we kind of brought it on ourselves, or that we could have done more to stop it. Whereas The Thing, we were just kind of fucked from the start.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. And it's also something that is like not successful or famous enough to be ripped off repeatedly. So it still maintains that feeling, which is cool.
Yeah. And I wanted to bring this up. I don't know if you guys saw this. I saw a strange video. I was doing like my tiny bit of research behind it because I came here to fanboy over it. But there was I watched one of the original trailers for it in the ad. And there's a scene in the trailer, the very end trailer. It has that closing ending, sorry, spoilers, of Mustache Man reaching for the mirror with his left hand. And he touches the mirror and something breaks out of it. I was
weird.
Like, I don't remember that at all. And I was like, it is such a stronger choice how they ended it actually than what that little trailer bit showed me. I was like, thank you for not ending there, because that would have been super cheese. Like the ending scene, the ending moment, and that friction of not touching it. It's the perfect place to stop.
I do bet that they probably filmed it that way as like a Carrie type of final sting, and then Carpenter and his good sense decided it was better to stop just short of that. It's not like we don't know what's coming at that point.
Right. But not showing me that was such a better choice. So thank you, John.
It's like it's going to be more scary than the final transmission of the Tachyon Dream year 199 thing.
Yeah.
I should share my wife's read of the ending, because she was very drunk at that point. She was it was a night the baby gone to bed. We're watching Prince of Darkness, so she was like, "I'm having mojitos."
You're gonna have a few sips of Satan's cocktails.
Yeah. Exactly, and her read on the end was that the which is the girl's name? The
Lisa Blunt. I don't know what the character name is.
Lisa Blunt. It's a very memorable actress name. Lisa Blunt pushes Satan's vessel into the mirror universe. And gets trapped there, and the mustache fellow kind of has no bearing on the outcome of the story. And her read of that was the end was the final transmission was actually his dream, because he felt shame over the events of the film, and she really liked that. And I was like, no, it means the world's ending, hon. That's actually the anti-god is one, yeah.
And you hate to pull from outside of the text, but it's like, nah, this is part of the Apocalypse trilogy, so that's sort of the definitive reading.
Yeah.
And because Mustache Man had a one-night stand, he's going to bring about the end of the universe, because he wants to pull his girlfriend back.
Yep.
Wait, is he going to bring her back out? I thought it was just that.
That's the idea, yeah.
What I took, that he's reaching in the mirror because he had the dream where he dreams he sees her in the image, in the dream. The 1999, it's her standing there now, not the dark image. And now she's the evil because she's on the other side.
But she's coming out of the church 12 years later, not out of his mirror in his bedroom.
Right. Well, he's not doing it in that instant. No, I'm with you. But the idea that he would go on to, I'm taking that he will later be the reason she does come back.
Right. Okay. He's not drawing her out of that mirror at that moment.
Not that moment.
Stop just short there.
Well, I've lost it now because I thought he was taking her out at that moment. Okay. Well
just still 87. I took it as
maybe it is the feminist meaning that my wife saw when she was drunk. I don't know.
But again, the movie doesn't answer everything. I love that.
Yes,
I want these discussions. I don't need it to lay out the path and here's what's happened from A to B. That's what makes it more fun.
I mean, I definitely feel the world ends.
Yes.
That's certainly my takeaway from that ending. So I think that, the rest is minutia, perhaps.
And despite all their efforts and all their science and all their logic and all their love, the end doesn't change. Just the person who brings it about does. That's it. You just shuffled the characters. That's all you did.
So is your guys' reading of that in the dream sequences earlier, it was the dark figure was the anti-god, whatever, and then it changes to her in the final one, or was it always her and we just couldn't make out her face?
The latter is what I imagined. Okay. I thought it was always her, and it's just becoming clearer the closer we get to it.
I took it the former. I took it that it was this dark image, and their actions actually did have an impact. It just wasn't enough.
Okay.
And it just changes to her.
Yeah, I kind of thought
that's how I took it.
I wasn't really sure that I got that from the movie.
So when Mustache goes into the chrono ball and races into the past to change the events of the future, it actually changes not just the future but the past as well. I'm doing a Flash joke. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
It's
I told you I'm not going to see that movie.
Bad. Don't. Yeah. Okay.
I shan't. But no, I guess I don't know that I got from the movie that it had actually changed, but I had, I don't know, ideas of time loops and how, there's kind of only one way to do this type of thing in movies, but they still, it's been the same since 12 Monkeys, but every Tenet and every other time travel movie comes out, it has to somehow be the thing that they have to be the cause of the thing they're trying to prevent. And so that the time travel tachyon beam element of it made me want to think that it must be the case that way, but I'm not sure the movie ever really establishes it.
There's a number of things this movie doesn't firmly establish. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And there's one thing that it does.
Oh,
that mustache. Oh, it's the firmest mustache I've seen in a dog's age.
All right. I think that feels like we're done, right? Does anyone have any final thoughts on Prince of Darkness here? Anything that needs to be said on this this fine film? Fine, interesting John Carpenter entry.
Other than my gushing love for it, I will say that in homage to other podcasts I listen to of copies of Framework, that I want the Muppet version with Alice Cooper as the lone human.
Nice.
Okay. Will this become a new thing we do?
Is Fozzie Mustache Man?
Well, he is a loser.
I guess he could be the Dennis Dunn character, sort of. But no, that's probably Gonzo. I think.
That's Gonzo.
Yeah,
That's Gonzo. But Pleasance is Dr. Bunsen Honeydew. I mean, it's the physical resemblance alone. I guess he is a man of science, though, so maybe not.
Yeah,
maybe he's Victor Wong.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And Pleasance is...
And Beaker's just there. Sammy.
Can Pleasance be Sweetums? Does that not work? All right, we got to stop.
Sorry, I'll be right out, hon. We're casting Prince of Darkness with Muppets. Once we're done with that, I'll be right out.
We're doing the Lord's work.
Does she have any suggestions?
Her face said no.
All right. No, that God, Muppet Prince of Darkness would be quite a scene. But then you want a Muppet to be the jar of Satan.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that.
That could be Piggy. No. Look,
Beaker.
Female Muppets are at a premium, so I guess she needs to be.
I think Piggy is the one who gets possessed first.
Yes.
Susan, I think it was in this one.
I could see the makeup on Piggy. Yeah. That would be good. Yeah.
And she just has to be a much more. Yeah. She has to be a much more verbal thrall of the Prince of Darkness.
A lot of karate chops and yes.
Indeed. All right.
Janice really gets press ganged into like these major roles because there's no Lady Muppets to use.
I guess that's true.
Well, maybe Janice is the female lead. Shit.
Yeah. She's just waiting in the wings, man. She's just waiting.
Okay, we're done. Very good.
Goodbye, John.
All right, thank you, Sal. Bye. Prince of Darkness.
Thank you very much.